One of my guilty pleasures in Magic is mill decks. Decks designed to win the game by forcing your opponent to run out of cards and draw from an empty library. This strategy often polarises people, but if like me you enjoy the look of despair on your opponent's face as they watch all their cards slowly disappear, then I have something for you that you won't want to miss. Hey, it's Vincent here and welcome to Vincent Games, your untapped source of Magic the Gathering info, tips and discussion. A big part of this channel are deck techs and strategies to help us improve and think about the game in different ways. So if you're new here, consider subscribing and become part of the conversation. Ever since Shadows over Innistrad was released, I've always wanted to play with the card Startled Awake. It mills your opponent for 13 and then comes back from the grave to threaten another mill for 13. But sadly, it's not really had an awful lot of chance to shine, but with the printing of Fraying Sanity in Hour of Devastation, you can threaten to win the game very quickly, and this deck plays full 4 copies of each. Fraying Sanity is a 3-mana enchantment that checks at the end of every turn how many cards the opponent has had move into their graveyard from anywhere, and then will mill by that amount. Now that might just sound fairly mediocre, but let's say you have 2 Fraying Sanity in play, and you cast a Startled Awake. You more or less kill your opponent on the spot. You mill 13 and end the turn, and the first Fraying Sanity trigger will see that 13 cards are gone, so mill another 13, putting the total cards milled to 26. So when the second Fraying Sanity goes to resolve, it will see that 26 cards have now gone to the grave, meaning that one will now mill 26 instead, for a total of 52 cards gone in one hit, plus their opening hand, and the few cards they would have drawn to get to this point in the game, and they're just dead. So even with just these 2 cards we have some potential for some craziness, but for the non-magical Christmas land draws, you do have other ways to mill too. 4 Compelling Argument and 4 Winds of Rebuke. Either of these with the Fraying Sanity in play mill for hefty amounts. And whilst Compelling Argument is straight mill, the Winds of Rebuke allow you to slow your opponent down a bit in order to mill them out before they kill you. Both very useful for what we're trying to do here. And the other ways we'll be slowing our opponents down come in the form of 4 Censor, 3 Disallow and 3 Supreme Will. All of these cards have proved their worth in Standard, and they're solid options. The flexibility of Censor and Supreme Will is something that should not be underestimated. I prefer Disallow over Void Chatter in this deck, because if you're going to put so much stuff in your opponent's graveyard, exiling a single thing just seems a bit of a waste of time, compared to the potential to counter around that Ruins activation or a Planeswalker Ultimate. In order to really slow our opponents down though, we're also running 4 Engulf the Shore and 3 Baral's Expertise. Being able to bounce 3 threats and cast something else as well is great. Engulf being an instant is really useful. You can cast it in response to counters being put on creatures if you're playing against the counters deck, or you can cast it in end step if you wanted to leave out counter magic, and this flexibility is just really useful. Lastly, we have 2 Pull from Tomorrow to help us dig to what we need. Considering we have no creatures in the deck, we actually need to cast our mill spells, and Pull from Tomorrow helps us to dig to what we need, whether that's a mill spell or a way to bounce creatures if we're in a bit of a tight spot. The card is solid and I'm happy to have a couple in the deck. As for the mana base, we have 2 Desert of the Mindful, 4 Ipnu Rivulet and 1 Scavenger Grounds. The Rivulet provides additional reach if we struggle to draw more mill, and the utility of the cycling and graveyard hate deserts is nice to have. I would play more of these to go with the 18 islands, but I want to maximise the potential of Engulf the Shore. Every non-island land that you put in the deck significantly impacts the effectiveness of Engulf the Shore. Even this configuration could prove to be too many. As for the sideboard, we have 4 Negates and 2 Sphinx of the Final Word for control decks, and 4 Crook of Condemnation for any graveyard strategies. We also have 1 Unsummon, 1 Baral's Expertise and 3 Imprisoned by the Moon. Unsummon is there as a bit more additional bounce for early interaction against the quicker decks. Baral's Expertise is for additional bounce versus mid-range or slower creature-based decks, and the Imprisoned by the Moons are for any difficult planeswalkers or creatures that you might struggle to deal with once they've resolved. And there you have it, Mono Blue Mill. If you're looking something a little bit fun for F&M before the new rotation, and maybe you missed out on casting Startled Awake and you really wanted to give this deck a go before the rotation hits, then I really recommend trying this out at your F&M. Let me know how it gets on, and if there are any cards you feel I might have missed out. If you'd change anything, let me hear your comments below. Also, if you've enjoyed the video and you want to see more like this, then consider subscribing. You'll keep up to date with all my future videos and deck techs as I post them. And if you want to see the last deck check, then check out the links in the video and the description below. Feel free to request any decks you want to see in the comments below as well. If you're interested in even more MTG content, then I also record a podcast called Glimmer of Genius, the link for which can also be found in the description below. Finally, if you like what you see, then hit that like button, follow me on Facebook, or share the video. It shows your support for the channel, keeps the ideas flowing, and gets you involved in the discussion. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more.